Welcome in to another episode of my Dynasty Fantasy Football YouTube. Today, 2025 Dynasty sells. As always, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Let's go. First player, Josh Jacobs. So, again, I don't want this to come off like I don't like Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a good player. He's been a good player for his entire career. But remember, in Dynasty, you're not paying for past production. You're paying for future production. And Jacobs is probably up there with the most overvalued Dynasty assets, at least for what he is bringing in on the trade market. So this year, Josh Jacobs, great fantasy year. 301 carries, 1,329 yards, 15 touchdowns, 4.4 yards a carry, and 36 catches for 342 yards and a touchdown. He did finally catch a receiving touchdown, but you can kind of see, like, the volume was there, but he played all 17 games. It's actually not more carries than the past. And it's all coming from touchdowns, not efficiency, not receiving volume. So that is a little bit scary. Now, why do I have him as Dynasty? Well, some of what I just talked about. Touchdown regression, pass rate regression also. And we're heading into an age value cliff, contract cliff situation. So like I was alluding to earlier, Josh Jacobs did not have more volume in 2024 than 2023. 17.7 carries this year, 17.9 carries last year, but 16 total touchdowns versus 6. He did play 4 more games, but still much higher touchdown rate this year. The Packers had 23 rushing touchdowns compared to 28 passing touchdowns. That's not likely to repeat itself. I'd expect the passing touchdown number to rise. What's definitely not going to repeat itself, and this I can tell you for sure, is the Packers running more than passing. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It didn't happen in 2023. It's not going to happen in 2025 because the Packers, I think they saw this team is limited. Limited. You're not going to win a Super Bowl with what they have. You can't do it. You can't win a Super Bowl with this type of running offense. If you had Saquon Barkley, maybe, but Josh Jacobs is not Saquon Barkley. He's not hyper efficient on a per carry basis. And they don't have a wide receiver one, and they need one badly. I think we're going to see a little bit of a reversal in 2025 of their offense. And then, look, Josh Jacobs turned 27 in February. His contract has basically no guarantees after 2025. So after 2025, Packers can move on whenever they like. They can save $8.4 million by moving on after 2025, $13.5 million after 2026. I'm not saying that's a lock, but Jacobs is not guaranteed anything based past 2025. And look, not every running back beats the age cliff. Jacobs is not an elite athlete. He is not Saquon Barkley. He is not Christian McCaffrey. He is not Derrick Henry. He's not. He never has been. He reminds me more, if I had to give you a comparison, to Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott. They're great running backs. They were high volume running backs. It was more based on volume in their career. They hit the wall around age 27. When it was done, it was done. I didn't mind Jacobs' cost last offseason, but this offseason, he's more expensive, a year older, with 1,600 carries on his body. So I'm kind of very out on Jacobs at his current price. Now, why am I out on him? The trade market's a lot of why. It's just so much that you can get back. Different varieties of deals. I mean, Jacobs is not even worth the 105, let alone Chris Godwin, who's a valuable player, plus the 105. This next one, I mean, yeah, Jacobs is a good player. Keon Coleman is okay. 208 for Kyler Murray in a super flex. I mean, you have your doubts about Kyler Murray, but in a super flex, there's no contest between these two sides. And then this last one, it's kind of the same thing. Jacobs, Devonta Smith, 206 for Nico Collins and James Conner. I mean, I like Jacobs, Smith, and 206, but none of those things are Nico Collins. Not to mention James Conner is coming back to give you some of that running back production back. So, and these are just a few of the offers. Almost no offers involving Jacobs were ones where I was on the other side. So this is just your moment to sell. You had your buy window. You enjoyed a great season if you bought him or drafted him last year, but now is a time to move on. And now the second player, another player who I kind of think is in the same mold of it's time to move on, Terry McLaurin. I would have given anything for Terry McLaurin to get a good quarterback. How about starting in 2019? in his rookie year when he was 24. That would have been great, but we didn't get that. And he's getting up there in age now. And it just sucks because the really, really good quarterback has come too late for him. And a lot of what's going on with McLaurin is misleading. So this year, 82 catches, 1,096 yards, 13 touchdowns, 117 targets, 4.8 catches, and 64.5 yards a game. That's not impressive. 117 targets is nothing special. The yards, nothing special. Catches, nothing special. But the touchdowns are what stand out. It's why he was relevant this year and not the last 4 years. Why do I have him as a sell? Well, I mean, you can probably guess. Over the past 2 weeks, he's been good. In week 18 and the playoff game, 15 catches, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns on 22 targets. That's really great. I really hope it makes them forget about his week 17 performance in fantasy championship week. If you started Terry McLaurin and his 1 catch for 5 yards, screwed you. You know, but if you're selling him to someone, they didn't have Terry McLaurin. Maybe they don't remember that happened. So it might not affect his value. But there are many other problems with Terry McLaurin. I mean, we can go into, here's a problem. 117 targets are the lowest mark since 2019. You would think, oh, Jaden Daniels, the target volume went up. No, it didn't. Didn't go up, despite facing weak target competition. Target competition, Noah Brown, Zach Ertz, Olamide Zaccheaus. Weak target competition, targets still lowest since 2019. So that's no good. What about the target share? Maybe that's not, maybe that's good. No, it's not actually so good. 23.3% target share, 34th among wide receiver. Nothing special. What about the target rate? That's actually worse. 22.7%, 44th among wide receiver. These are not elite numbers. These are not even good. These are an okay wide receiver. I mean, this is nothing special. So the target share is bad. The raw targets are bad. And the target rate is bad. What about, we went over the receptions and yards per game earlier. Were those good? Not really. I mean, it's not his best season in receptions per game. And it's 4th out of his 6 in yards per game. So this isn't even that good of a season for him in receptions or yards. So across all the repeatable stats, it's all bad. All of it's bad. But along the one that counts the most for fantasy points, so that one was good. 13 receiving touchdowns. Is any receiver going to duplicate 44.8% of the Commanders' receiving touchdowns? No, that's not possible. That is not possible to be reproduced. And it's not like McLaurin always scores a lot of touchdowns. Now, that's not even reliable, but you can't even say that. He's never had more than 5 in any season since 2019. And even that year, he only had 7. So we're almost doubling his previous best season. And this was without anyone else who was good at all on the entire team. That's going to change. Commanders have at least $89 million in 2025 cap space. That's assuming they don't cut anyone. They do nothing. They have $89 million. $89 million is a lot. Jaden Daniels' rookie contract, 4 more cost control years of Daniels. They can do whatever they want. McLaurin wasn't earning elite volume against Olamide Zaccheaus, Noah Brown, and Zach Ertz. How's it going to be next year? The Commanders, to me, they're going to add 2 major wide receivers. It's not if. They will. 1 free agent, probably 1 via the NFL draft or with their 1st or 2nd round pick at a minimum. So it's not going to look better for Terry McLaurin volume-wise next year. It's great. He had a great year. But he is being thought of as like a fantasy wide receiver 1, and he is not a fantasy wide receiver 1. He's not even close. So how do you move on? I mean, there are so many ways. Terry McLaurin and a 26th third from Amari Cooper at 26th first. I'd rather have Cooper over a 3rd in 2026. But 2026 first is easy for me for Terry McLaurin. It's not close. I'd rather have the 26th first. I'd rather have any first for Terry McLaurin. But there are better offers than this. What if you could combine Terry McLaurin with Chuba Hubbard? He's okay, an okay player. Rashee Rice in 206. I mean, Rashee Rice showed ability to gain elite volume over a period of time, which Terry McLaurin has never done in his career. Rice is 5 years younger. I mean, this is easy money. And then another one, 108 and 205. I think this is pretty good value. I mean, pretty much every deal involving McLaurin, I was on the other side. The volume, the yards, the targets, everything says Terry McLaurin is overrated. So if you sell, you're probably going to get a good return. And to be honest, I didn't even realize, I knew this was going to be the case, but I didn't even realize how bad it was before I did all the research on these numbers. So he's a hard sell for me. It's pretty easy. Maybe one of my biggest sells in all of Dynasty. Now, if you like my YouTube videos, you should sign up for the Patreon. I'm offering a 50% discount at all tiers using the code TylerYT during the quieter part of the year. I've decided that I'm going to offer that promo until the start of free agency when content picks up. So from now until that beginning, there will be a 50% discount. There's still going to be a discount for people following the YouTube. It's just the amount is going to go down as we pick up the pace of content. You get my rankings, access to the Discord, and the ability to ask in advance questions for YouTube video, also write-ups. We're going to do a promo video for the Patreon soon. I'm thinking next week, actually, in place of the Wednesday video. I'm thinking maybe a promo video next week. And tiers begin at just $6 a month, $3 with discount, and include all of that. If you want to know more about the Patreon, check out those videos, including the one I think next week that I'm going to do. And the big thing, rookie content will not be done on the YouTube until April. Tried it last year, didn't work, was not popular on the YouTube, and I'm going to keep that for my Patreon subscribers only until April. So if you want my rookie takes for the next 2.5 months, those will be for patrons only. And I'll start doing my YouTube content on the rookie content on the YouTube in some point in April. With that said, we'll get into my last sell. So my last sell, Dalton Kincaid, and I think there are still people out there who think Kincaid is going to break out and is going to become a big-time weapon at some point. I don't think so. I don't think so. We've seen that these tweeners don't tend to work. These players who are not refined enough receivers to be wide receiver, but cannot really play tight end at the NFL level on an every down basis. This is Dalton Kincaid. This is Kyle Pitts. To a degree, Evan Ingram. You know, Darren Waller, I guess, was one of the most successful in that mold. But really, these guys don't succeed very often. Most of the high-end tight ends are tight ends. Like Brock Bowers is actually a tight end. Trey McBride, the same. Actually a tight end. George Kittle, actually a tight end. Not receivers pretending to be a tight end. Now, this year, Kincaid, 44 catches, 448 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3.4 catches, and 34.5 yards game. Just hasn't improved much from last year. Lower in catches and yards per game, actually. So it's not improved, despite Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis's departure. So even though receivers were departed, especially Diggs, and not really replaced, he still didn't step up. He didn't step up. He averaged 7.8 PPR points a game, 19th among tight ends. He just contributed nothing. He was 0.1 points per game better than Kyle Pitts. And this was despite facing target competition, which, as I talked about on the Monday video, was lacking. It's lacking. And he still didn't deliver. And I think there's just a lot of problems with Kincaid. And we just have kind of a middling player who's not going to be what we wanted. He only exceeded 65% snap share in 4 of 13 games. And he's been under 50% in all of the final 3 regular season games, plus the playoff game we just saw this week. He's just not an every down tight end. The Bills don't trust him to be an every down tight end. And I don't see that changing. I don't think this is, well, in the future, he's going to develop into that. I think we see in like the Kyle Pitts usage from this year, I think it doesn't happen. These players that are not really tight ends don't become that. It's a very hard position to learn. That's why tight ends break out so late. But I don't think that the problem is that Kincaid is going to learn it later. I just think it's not going to happen. Evan Ingram never became a good blocking tight end. So, you know, you have to have that high usage or a team willing to sacrifice by putting you on the field, even though you're not very good at being a traditional tight end. Now, there are some positive numbers about Kincaid. He has a 20.2% target share, 8th among tight ends, 29.4% target rate, 7th among tight ends. Target rate's interesting, but he's not out there enough. If he were out there every play, this would be nice. And I'm nervous. I'm nervous about what's going to happen in 2025 with that target share specifically. I'm nervous it's going to go down, not up. Now, why do I feel that way? The Bills failed to have really anyone relevant outside of Khalil Shakir. They drafted Keon Coleman. He didn't deliver 60 targets or 2.5 catches a game. I mean, that's not a high bar. That's nothing. Amari Cooper, nothing. They traded for him. He was below those marks. Curtis Samuel, Free agent, didn't deliver. All of these players, I mean, maybe not Amari Cooper, but Coleman, Shakir, Curtis Samuel, Dawson Knox as another tight end will all be back. And I just don't see why things are going to change for Dalton Kincaid. And that's if it stays the same. What if they take a big swing at wide receiver? Josh Allen was the only All-Pro on the entire roster. He's doing a lot with not much. Dalton Kincaid was supposed to be a top receiving weapon when he came in, and that's not what he is. He's a good part of the offense, but is a third weapon, maybe third, fourth weapon. Josh Allen and James Cook are papering over this problem, but eventually that's not going to work. And if the Bills don't win the Super Bowl this year, this is going to be why. Is because the receiving core is just not good enough. And I think that's a reason to sell Dalton Kincaid. So some packages for Kincaid. I'd rather just have TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson's only like 2 years older than Dalton Kincaid. And we know TJ Hawkinson is a good tight end. Will be out there. And even injured was doing better than Dalton Kincaid. Could you combine him with 112 and 202 for Puka Nacua and 302? This was in the trade database. I'd absolutely do that. I mean, Puka Nacua is a star. And then selling Dalton Kincaid for 112 and 1.5 tight end premium. I think I'd rather, let's say it's one of the top tight ends in this class. And they go in the first round. I think I'd rather what I have not seen from those guys over what I do know about Dalton Kincaid. I think I'd rather just another first round tight end over Dalton Kincaid. A blind item, I think, would be better for me than Kincaid. Now, we've got a bit of NFL news, just one piece. Diontae Johnson, cut by the Texans. I mean, man, Diontae Johnson feels like he's circling the drain. Less than 12 months ago, he was on the Steelers. Then he's been to the Panthers, the Ravens, the Texans. He was actually claimed by the Ravens. That's not going to matter. It's a procedural move. It's just for the Ravens comp formula. But Johnson is a free agent. I think they just claimed him to be petty because they claimed him, he can't sign until regular free agency period. I don't expect him, I don't even know. He'll be 29 in July. If a team takes a chance on him, it'll be on an incentive laden deal. Johnson has no dynasty value anymore. It's a shame, but don't cut him in dynasty, but he doesn't have dynasty value. I'm not trading for him. And if you have him, just hang on to him when he signs. Try to get rid of him at that point. Now, we've got a couple of Patreon questions. First one, expectations for the Rams quarterback room, cup situations going into next year. Stafford's contract's pretty much guaranteed for 2025. Rams would have $49 million in dead cap if Stafford retired or they cut him. I fully expect Stafford to be back for 2025. They're still in the playoffs. I just don't see why he would be gone. Kupp, though, turns 32, done nothing down the stretch. 5 catches for 62 yards in the last 4 games on 10 total targets. A lot of Kupp's high volume was when Nacua was hurt or ejected. They planned to have Nacua for those games, had to adjust on the fly. I still think Kupp will be there for 2025. Teams don't tend to cut franchise legends. Chargers did do it with Keenan Allen, so I can't rule it out. But I think Kupp in 2025 is going to be a lot like Tyler Lockett in 2024. It's an important member of the team, but he's not even going to be the second receiving option in this offense. I bet the Rams add someone in the first round or in free agency that they expect to at least compete with Kupp, if not exceed Kupp for that wide receiver 2 role. I'm done with Kupp in Dynasty. I think he's done. When guys in their 30s start to show you they're in decline, believe them. In non-tight end premium formats, do you believe it's still important to have a high-end starter at the position in order to compete, or is it more of a luxury? I think it's completely unnecessary. Yes, there are a few guys, Bowers and McBride in Dynasty only, but it's a luxury. You're better off having a solid rest of your lineup and fading tight end than spending a lot on the upper middle tight ends. They just don't score enough outside of tight end premium to be difference makers. So I'd say more of a luxury if I had to choose. What would be the best landing spot for Darnold if Minnesota doesn't re-sign him? Okay, so about Sam Darnold, he's obviously lost a lot of money in the last 2 games, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get comments. People are going to say, well, Sam Darnold is going to be a backup quarterback next year. He's going to get a contract worth 15 to 20 million a year. These people are delusional. They're delusional. They're not paying attention to the quarterback market. They're not paying attention to reality. Reality says that a 28-year-old who had a 14-win season, who played really well outside of the final 2 games, is going to be a starter in 2025 and is going to be relatively well compensated to do that. To me, it's a question of, do the Vikings use the franchise tag on Darnold and delay J.J. McCarthy's debut for 1 more year? I think we're past the idea that the Vikings are going to trade McCarthy and commit a long-term contract to Darnold. I don't think they're going to do that right now. I think they'd have to see another year from Darnold to see what happens. So are they going to tag Darnold and either keep him for 1 year, run it back, and then make a decision in 2026, or tag him and try to trade him? If he's not tagged, he'd be a free agent. And I think multiple teams will be interested, but there's one team I have my eye on. It's the Raiders. The Raiders, they have $92 million in cap space. They have 6th overall pick. The Raiders could easily sign Darnold, sign T. Higgins, and draft Ted McMillan at 6. They could. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. And they would have a weapons group of Godwin or Higgins. Godwin would also be an option for them. McMillan, Myers, and Bowers. I mean, those are pretty good weapons, right? But there's nothing stopping them from doing that. They have all the cap space. They have, also an extra 3rd-round pick. They have 304 and 309 in addition to 205. They could draft a running back. They could draft a wide receiver if one of those prior plans don't work out, or, if McMillan is gone at 6 and they still have Higgins or Godwin, and they could add a 2nd-round wide receiver. But the best spot is the Raiders by far. The Raiders could put a very solid team on the field. The Raiders are not the Giants, who have, the Giants have Malik Neighbors, but the Giants have so many needs. Their roster's not in as good of a position. The Raiders are not a bad roster. They just had subpar coaching and terrible quarterback play in 2024. They could easily be. The division makes it tough, but they could be a good roster in 2025. There's nothing stopping them. So the Raiders would be the best spot for me if Minnesota doesn't work out. Now, if you like the video, make sure to support the channel by subscribing. And don't forget to hit that notifications bell so you can be notified about all my exciting content as it drops. Of course, if you want my best fantasy football advice, it's available on Patreon. Dynasty content year-round. 50% discount at all tiers for now using the code TylerYT. Click on that link, patreon.com/fantasyadvice to sign up. Every sign-up helps support my independent content. And I hope you're enjoying content. I've tried to be a little looser with the content, more long form, just kind of let myself go instead of trying to rush and finish it in 15 minutes. People, I think, have enjoyed this form of content, so I'm going to keep going with the YouTube videos in this kind of way. So once again, I thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you all later.